So thank you very much. So what I will do is that I will try to say something about the work on coordination, harmonization of e-infrastructures that has been done in e-IRG. And I will then try to also draw some conclusions from what I've heard here today and see if we can sort of get to some sort of ideas about this global aspect. So what is the e-IRG, the Infrastructure Reflection Groups? Well, we are funded to provide advice on e-infrastructure, on European e-infrastructure. And the vision here is to create an open and innovating e-infrastructure ecosystem. It has eventually been called now the Commons. And the idea is, of course, to enable the best possible landscape, the best possible resources, the best possible environment for European researchers to work with digital tools. So this involves all types of e-infrastructure. It involves networking, resources built on networking for electronic identities, etc., computing, high-performance computing, as well as distributed computing, and eventually then the tools used for the actual science. So this is the goal of e-IRG, to provide advice for how to build this environment. The group as such, it's built from delegates appointed by the ministries of the different member states and associated states of EU. So it is a group which is similar to the S3 Forum in that sense. And we provide then advice to the member states and also to the Commission and to e-infrastructure providers. And in the context of this meeting, I should then say that the focus of e-IRG is, of course, on Europe. It has been on Europe so far. There has been some connections to the world outside Europe, but not very much. And this is pretty natural, since it's a body built from European states in that sense. This group has, however, acknowledged this global nature of research. So we see more and more that research is done on a global scale. And that means that we cannot just focus on Europe. I can say from a personal point of view, I'm also involved in collaboration on another scale, on the Nordic scale, the Nordic countries, where I work for a Nordic funding and policy agency, that it's easy to sit in one group of people, one group of countries, for example, the Nordic countries, and develop solutions. And then suddenly you find that these have become obsolete because something else has been developed elsewhere that is actually used by a large set of people. And Europe might, of course, find itself in the same situation. So we have to be careful, and we have to be very open to what is happening outside the European countries. Well, what have we done? Well, the most recent development in e-IRG has been based on the white paper from 2013, which describes the single European e-infrastructure commons. And there's been a lot of discussions of the commons here today, and I think at least some of that discussions originate from this e-IRG paper. There are details in the description of the e-IRG, European e-infrastructure commons, that I will not go into now. You can read this paper if you're interested. But there are at least three main components that I will mention. So coordination, some effort that coordinates and integrates different aspects of e-infrastructure. That's important to get a coherent landscape. Sustainable services. The researchers have to rely on that, or they should rely on the services to exist today and also in the future. So if you build an e-infrastructure service and you want it to be used, you better be able to say that it will also be useful in like 10 years, because otherwise the researchers will not rely on it. And of course, innovation, because e-infrastructures are constantly developed to meet the needs of researchers and also to use the new opportunities given by new types of resources. And this discussion might very well be interesting also on a global scale, but it's clear that there are other aspects and both of policy and politics and also of sort of the basic layers in this infrastructure that needs to be dealt with first. So you have seen this picture already today. It was shown by South Africa earlier. The idea of the infrastructure commons is to have the different research activities and maybe other research infrastructures as vertical pillars, using some sort of coherent e-infrastructure landscape, built in different layers, from networking over computing data up to tools and services. And actually what was mentioned earlier today in the South African example was that it would be good if e-infrastructures were not separated from other infrastructures. And this is also the aspect or the view of e-IRG. So we have then, during the last years, intensified the collaboration with ESFRI. And ESFRI is really the main the main infrastructure body, research infrastructure body in Europe today, but they don't really deal a lot with horizontal e-infrastructures. ESFRI projects depend on elements of e-infrastructures. In fact, some of them are e-infrastructures, like Elixir. And there has been a lack of coordination between these two elements, horizontal e-infrastructures and sort of vertical research infrastructures focusing on a specific topic. So we have intensified this collaboration with ESFRI. This started with joint recommendations on data management some years ago. We have now observers in our groups, and in the recent ESFRI round for proposals for new research infrastructures in Europe, this collaboration is developed to sort of a real operative collaboration, where e-IRG takes part in defining the needs or the questions for e-infrastructure, and also in evaluating the answers. So that means that we are working towards a coherent view of research infrastructures, including e-infrastructures. I think this is an important development, and it could be interesting for this forum also. As part of this work, we have recently published a guidelines paper. It's on the web since a few weeks ago, which then provides recommendations for how large-scale e-infrastructures, for example, ESFRI infrastrucures and others, can use horizontal European e-infrastructures. And this will be used then, or has been used, hopefully, by those writing new ESFRI proposals, and it will be used as a basis for this evaluation of the ESFRI proposals. So what about conclusions from this meeting? Well, this I wrote then during the meeting here today, this slide. First of all, we see that this project, ChainREDS, it's a meeting place for actors from the whole world. And of course, if one wants to continue this type of discussions, some sort of sustained meeting places are needed. This is the final conference. And it is an opportunity then to maybe use conferences like the ICRI, International Conference for Research Infrastructures, conference like network conferences, for example, to continue this discussion. I think that would be something that could be useful in the future. Also, a personal reflection is that if one wants to start global discussions on e-infrastructures and that type of collaboration, it's important to start at the bottom level to get networking, of course, connectivity working, to get the discussion on a digital identity and this type of identifiers for persons and publications and data, etc., to a global scale. And RDA, they are doing this. They have started to do this. So it's an important effort in that sense. Also, when listening to the discussions here today, it could be an opportunity to, in the future, have an e-IRG workshop focusing on the global aspects of e-infrastructure. That is not something that's been discussed in e-IRG, so it's still my personal reflection, but still I think this could be an opportunity. So thank you.